Today, we face a serious crisis in Ukraine. And it's worth reminding ourselves that it all started with Russia's refusal, which continues to this day, to allow the Ukrainian people to choose their own destiny, including a free trade agreement with the European Union. Remarkable. The EU and the United States are standing up for the principle of territorial integrity, the rejection of changes of borders through the use of force, and respect for international law. Russia's actions represent a fundamental challenge to our shared values and the rules-based international order. They require a steadfast response and a willingness to bear the costs. Sometimes a picture can be worth 1,000 words. That's why that cartoon is behind me. In March of this year, The Economist published an article entitled "Putin's Arrow: The Crisis in Ukraine is Reinvigorating Transatlantic Ties." The cartoon, as you can see, maybe some of you have a hard time seeing the details, features Putin as a Cupid, bare-chested, wearing army fatigues, just after firing an arrow at a tree where someone is carved in a heart-shaped form, the initials of the US and the EU. In the distance, President Obama and a woman dressed in the EU flag are happily walking off into the distance. Now, I'm not revealing any state secrets when I say that when I arrived in March of this year, US-EU relations were, how shall we say, in a difficult phase, in large part due to Snowden allegations and concerns about data privacy. As the Economist article argued, quote, "Russia is reminding both sides of the ties that bind." At a time when Russia is supplying troops and equipment, including tanks, armored vehicles, artillery, multiple rocket launchers to the separatists in the Ukraine, and bears responsibility for the slaughter of European citizens over the skies of Ukraine, it would be appropriate to put peripheral issues which are attracting significant media attention, such as chicken washed in chlorine, into some perspective. Russia's actions may remind us again of the geostrategic and economic importance of the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership Agreement. And Russia's actions may also assist in wrapping up several negotiations underway related to data privacy. I'll refer to both TTIP and data privacy in just a moment. European integration and transatlantic cooperation have always been forged in moments of crisis, specifically at times of external threat. Over the last few months, I've had the opportunity to be in that beautiful Justus Lipsius building, where on the ground floor one can see photographs of the founding fathers of the EU, Jean Monnet, Walter Hallstein, Robert Schuman, Konrad Adenauer, and others. One person who played a key role in the creation of the European coal and steel community, the kernel of what was later to become the European economic communities, is not on the wall. Joseph Stalin. The Soviet threat accelerated Europe's integration and was an important reason for strong US support for that process. Now, I'm not suggesting we are back to the days of the Cold War. However, Vladimir Putin may unwittingly be acting as the midwife of a new era in European integration and transatlantic cooperation. For now, Putin basks in the glow of high popular approval due to his nearly total control of the Russian media, banging the nationalist drum and engaging in Soviet-style agitprop bring short-term dividends. But it's safe to say that Putin has done more than any other Russian leader to set back Russia's strategic interests. Consider the following. Russian actions accelerated the timetable for Ukraine's signature of its deep and comprehensive free trade agreement and alienated the vast majority of the Ukrainian population, which for historical and cultural reasons had every reason to desire strong relations with its eastern neighbor. They accelerated the signature of EU association agreements with Moldova and Georgia. They led the US to deploy paratroopers in Poland, Estonia, Latvia, led our NATO partners to send fighter jets to Estonia and Poland. They resulted in NATO conducting air policing operations over the Baltic states and increased military exercises and training in Eastern Europe. The NATO summit may decide to pre-position troops in Poland and the Baltics. European defense spending, which has been on a downward trajectory for years, may stabilize and perhaps even reverse. And some neutral countries are re-examining their potential membership in NATO. Today, nobody would question the relevance of NATO. A few years ago, many were. All of this thanks to Mr. Putin. Perhaps most importantly, Russian actions, including the shutoff of gas to Ukraine, have focused minds on Russia's unreliability as an energy exporter and on the importance of an EU energy policy. Such a policy would include diversification of supply, the creation of a true internal market where energy can flow more freely, and the ability of Europe to negotiate as one in order to resist Russian efforts to use energy as a political weapon against the weak. At the same time, Russia is vigorously opposing fracking. It does so out of concern to protect the health of European citizens. That's about as likely as the claim that several thousand Russian soldiers lost their bearings and mistakenly crossed into Ukraine over the past several weeks. We have been busy following up on the recommendations of the USEU Energy Ministerial in Brussels last spring regarding measures to enhance energy security in Ukraine. Some medium to long-term measures which could avoid Russian territory were also discussed. There are many ways in which the US and the EU can collaborate on energy security. These may include LNG exports from the United States, the mobilization of private capital to build the necessary infrastructure in Europe, collaboration on enhancing the transparency of Ukraine's energy sector, assisting Ukraine to develop national hydrocarbon resources, and sharing experiences in the development of alternative energies. I've been a front row observer of how the Ukraine crisis is strengthening the sinews of transatlantic cooperation every day. The US government and the Commission, Council, and the member states are coordinating financial assistance bilaterally and through the international financial institutions, focusing aid programs where they are most needed, and working together to help Ukraine begin to address its energy needs. Our coordination on Russia sanctions has been close and productive, just as it was on Iran sanctions. The last package, announced in late July, was a significant step forward. I've been impressed that 28 member states have been able to take significant actions, notwithstanding different perspectives and different vulnerabilities. President Herman Van Rompuy made clear at last week's meeting of the European Council that the European Council is ready to take significant steps and has requested the Commission to urgently undertake preparatory work together with the Action Service to present proposals within a week, by the end of this week, including provisions on the basis of which every person and institution dealing with the separatist groups in the Donbass will be listed. This week we are discussing concrete proposals with European counterparts regarding the tightening of existing sanctions and the implementation of new ones with teeth. As you may have seen, France has now announced the suspension of the Mistral sale. It was the right decision, it was a principled decision, and we support it. We welcome the fact that Donald Tusk will play a critical role in guiding the work of the 28 member states meeting on this issue in the European Council going forward. His courage, his moral compass, demonstrated ever since his solidarity activism, combating authoritarian rule, are critical assets at this time. I had the opportunity to witness the courage of those activists when I studied at the Jagiellonian University of Krakow in 1983, and I got to meet many of those people.